The lecture hall was cold and dark, the way the Corvani liked it. 200 alien cadets sat in curved rows that rose toward the ceiling like the inside of a giant bowl. They came from 12 different star systems. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had shells or tentacles or bodies made of things that humans would not recognize. But they all had one thing in common. They were here to learn how to fight. Commander Vethrax stood at the front of the room. He was tall, even for a Corvani. His green scales caught the dim light as he moved. His tail dragged behind him, heavy and powerful. He had fought in wars that lasted longer than some civilizations. He had killed creatures from worlds these cadets had never heard of, and now he was going to teach them about humans. A holographic image appeared behind him. It showed a human body, rotating slowly in the air. The image was detailed. Every muscle, every bone, every organ was labeled in the Corvani language. Class 4 to 7A, Vethrax said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. Today we begin our study of Homo sapiens, the humans. The cadets leaned forward in their seats. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only been part of the Galactic Concord for 40 years. But in that short time, they had spread across dozens of worlds. They built colonies. They made trade deals. They smiled and shook hands and acted like they belonged among species that traveled the stars for thousands of years. Some of the older races were worried about humans. They whispered about human persistence, about their strange ability to survive things that should kill them. But the Corvani did not worry. The Corvani knew that anything could be killed if you understood how. Humans are fragile, Vethrax continued. He pointed at the holographic image with one clawed finger. Their bodies are soft. They have no natural armor. No claws, no venom. They cannot see in the dark. They cannot hear high frequencies. They are, by any reasonable measure, one of the weakest species in the known galaxy. A few cadets made sounds of amusement. A Corvani in the front row clicked his mandibles together in what passed for laughter. Vethrax raised one hand for silence. But do not let their weakness make you careless. Weak creatures can still be dangerous if you do not know how to kill them properly. That is why you are here. To learn, he began to walk slowly across the front of the room. His tail swept behind him, leaving marks on the floor. First, respiration. Humans require constant oxygen to survive. Their brains begin to die after just 4 minutes without air. Deprive them of oxygen, and they will fall. It is simple. It is reliable. It is one of the easiest ways to end a human life. He tapped the holographic image, and it zoomed in on the human chest. Second, temperature. Humans can only survive within a narrow range of temperatures. Too hot, and their organs cook inside their bodies. Too cold, and they freeze. They cannot regulate their internal temperature the way many species can. They are slaves to their environment. The cadets were taking notes now. Some used electronic devices. Others scratched symbols onto tablets made of materials from their home worlds. All of them were paying attention. Third, sleep. Vethrax made a sound of disgust. Humans must sleep for approximately 8 hours every rotation cycle. Think about that. 1/3 of their existence is spent unconscious, vulnerable, unable to defend themselves. A species that sleeps is a species that can be killed in the night. A hand rose from the middle of the room. Vethrax turned to look. The cadet who had raised her hand was a Kethri, a species with 4 arms and scales that shimmered like oil on water. Her name was Sayla, and she was one of the best students in the academy, Commander Sayla said. The humans signed the Concord Peace Treaty. They are our allies. Why are we learning how to kill them? Vethrax stared at her for a long moment. Then his mandibles clicked together in amusement, because cadet, peace is temporary. It always has been. The Concord has existed for 3,000 years, and in that time, there have been 17 major wars between member species. Alliances shift, treaties break, and when they do, the species that survives is the one that prepared for war during peacetime. He turned back to the holographic image. Humans are expanding too fast. They want too much. One day, they will overstep. And when that day comes, the Concord will need soldiers who know how to stop them. The lecture continued for hours. Vethrax explained every weakness of the human body. He showed the cadets where to strike to break bones. He demonstrated how human blood could drain from a wound in minutes. He talked about human emotions and how they could be used as weapons. Humans loved their families. They would do anything to protect their friends. This made them predictable. This made them easy to manipulate, remember Vethrax said as the lecture ended. Humans think they are special. They believe their determination and their courage make them strong. But determination cannot stop a blade. Courage cannot heal a wound. In the end, humans die just like everything else. They just need more convincing. The cadets filed out of the lecture hall, talking among themselves about what they had learned. Sayla walked slowly, her mind turning over everything the commander had said. Something felt wrong to her. She could not explain what. In a small room on the other side of the academy, a human man named Marcus Chen watched a screen. On the screen was a recording of the entire lecture. Every word Vethrax had spoken. Every image he had shown. Every technique he had taught. Marcus was an embassy aide. Officially, he was on these or 7 to help with diplomatic relations. Unofficially, he was something else entirely. The Corvani did not know that humans had placed surveillance devices throughout their academy. The devices were small, no larger than a speck of dust. They were everywhere, and they saw everything. Marcus watched the recording without expression. His face showed nothing. When it was over, he opened a communication channel and sent the footage to Earth. He added a single note to the transmission.
They are teaching their children how to kill us.
Recommend we let them finish the course before we respond. 12 hours later, a reply came from Earth Command. Agreed. Let them believe they understand us. Observation Protocol Theta initiated. Patience is our weapon. Marcus read the message and smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible. The Corvani thought humans were weak. They thought humans were soft and fragile and easy to kill. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they first made contact with alien life. The galaxy believed that humans were prey. Humanity was happy to let them believe that. For now, in the lecture hall, the lights went dark. The holographic image of the human body faded away, and somewhere in the vast network of human intelligence, a file was updated. A note was added. A clock started counting. Humanity would wait. Humanity would watch. And when the time was right, humanity would teach the galaxy a very different lesson. 3 years passed, like water flowing through fingers. The Corvani Academy continued to teach its lessons. The cadets continued to learn how to kill humans. And humanity continued to watch in silence. Ambassador Yuki Tanaka stepped off her shuttle onto the Corvani homeworld. She was 63 years old, small and thin, with silver hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore a formal dress that made her look even smaller next to the massive Corvani guards who escorted her. They towered over her like mountains standing beside a flower. The guards looked at her with barely hidden contempt. Their eyes said with their mouths. They saw prey. They saw weakness. They saw something that would be easy to break. Why, Yuki Tanaka saw everything, and she showed nothing. The diplomatic summit was held in a grand hall with ceilings, so high that clouds could have formed beneath them. The Corvani High Chancellor sat on a throne made of black stone. Around him were representatives from a dozen species, all here to discuss trade and territory and the endless politics of the galaxy. When it was Tanaka's turn to speak, she stepped forward with quiet confidence. The Chancellor leaned down from his throne, his massive body casting a shadow over her. "Is Ambassador Tanaka," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. "We are pleased that humanity has sent someone to speak for them. Though we are surprised they did not send someone more substantial." It was an insult. Everyone in the room knew it. A few of the other delegates made sounds of amusement. Tanaka simply smiled. "The value of a voice is not measured by the size of the speaker, High Chancellor. I am here to represent Earth. My size is not relevant to that duty." The Chancellor's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. The summit continued. Over the next 3 days, the Corvani tested Tanaka in small ways. They scheduled meetings in rooms that were too cold for human comfort. She arrived in light clothing and showed no sign of distress. They served food that would make most species sick. She ate it without hesitation. They kept her waiting for hours, hoping to see frustration or anger. She waited with the patience of stone. "Curious creature," the Chancellor muttered to his aide on the 3rd day. "More resilient than the Academy suggested?" His aide, a younger Corvani with darker scales, nodded slowly. "Perhaps the Academy's curriculum is incomplete, High Chancellor." "Possible. We have studied humans thoroughly. We know everything about them." But doubt had been planted. And doubt, once planted, grows far across the galaxy. On the moon of the Zur-7, Sayla had become an instructor herself. She stood in the same lecture hall where she had once been a student, teaching the same lessons about human misdebt, weakness, to a new generation of cadets. But something had changed in Sayla. The doubt she had felt 3 years ago had not gone away. It had grown stronger. At night, when her duties were finished, she studied human history. Not the version that Concord Intelligence provided, which was short and dismissive. She found the humans' own records, their own stories, their own accounts of who they were and where they came from. What she found disturbed her. Humans had survived an ice age that killed most life on their planet. Their ancestors had lived through frozen winters that lasted generations. Hunting animals many times their size with nothing but sticks and stones, humans had invented nuclear weapons, devices powerful enough to destroy their entire civilization, and then they had chosen not to use them. They had stared into the face of their own extinction and stepped back from the edge. Humans had been to war countless times. They had burned cities and killed millions of their own kind. And every single time, they had rebuilt. They came back. They always came back. Sayla read about soldiers who had continued fighting with wounds that should have killed them. She read about survivors who had lasted weeks without food or water. She read about doctors who had worked for days without sleep to save lives. About rescuers who had dug through rubble for hours to find a single person. The Academy taught that humans died easily. The Academy never mentioned how hard they fought to stay alive. One evening, Sayla went to Commander Vethrax. He was older now, his scales fading to gray, but he still commanded respect. He had trained generations of soldiers. Commander Sayla said, "I have been reviewing human history. I believe our curriculum may be incomplete." Vethrax turned to look at her. His eyes were cold. "Incomplete? We have studied their biology down to the cellular level. We know every weakness of their bodies. We know how they die," Sayla said quietly. "But do we know how they survive?" Vethrax made a dismissive sound. "Survival means nothing if you can be killed. And humans can always be killed. That is the lesson. That is all that matters." But Sayla was not satisfied. She returned to her quarters and continued her research. The more she learned, the more she realized how little the Academy truly understood. Back on the Corvani homeworld, the summit was ending. Ambassador Tanaka had negotiated a trade agreement that favored humanity in ways the Corvani did not fully understand. They had signed it anyway, confident that they were humoring a lesser species. As Tanaka's shuttle lifted off, she opened a secure channel to Earth Command. "Phase 2 complete," she reported. "They still think we are prey." The response came quickly. "Phase 3 authorized. Begin the correction." Tanaka closed the channel and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a plan that had been 40 years in the making was about to enter its next stage. That same night, Sayla made a decision. She composed a message and sent it to a human professor she had found during her research. The professor worked at a university on Earth, studying alien cultures. Her name was Dr. Alina Vasquez. "I need to understand your species," Sayla wrote. "Not how to kill you. How you became what you are." The reply came 12 hours later. It was short and simple. Come to Earth. We will show you. Sayla stared at the message for a long time. Going to Earth would mean leaving everything she knew. It would mean admitting that her entire education had been wrong. It would mean accepting that the species she had been taught to despise might be something far more than she had ever imagined. She thought about the cadets she taught every day. She thought about the lessons she repeated, the weaknesses she listed, the techniques she demonstrated. She thought about what would happen if those cadets ever faced real humans in real combat. She thought about how many of them would die because they had been taught to underestimate their enemy. The next morning, Sayla requested a sabbatical for cultural research. Her superiors approved it without question. Why would they suspect anything? She was a loyal instructor, a product of the academy system, a true believer in Corvani's superiority. They had no idea that she was about to learn the truth. 2 weeks later, Sayla boarded a transport ship bound for Earth. As the stars stretched into lines around her, she felt something she had never felt before. Fear, but also hope. She was going to meet the prey. She was going to learn why they were not prey at all. Sayla had expected Earth to be soft. The Academy had taught her that humans lived in controlled environments, protected from the harsh realities of nature. They needed machines to keep them warm. They needed buildings to keep them safe. They were a species that had conquered their planet only because they had learned to hide from it. She was wrong about everything. The transport ship landed in a city called Oslo. It was winter, and the air was so cold that Sayla could see her breath forming clouds in front of her face. Snow covered the ground in white sheets. The wind cut through her clothing like frozen knives, and humans were everywhere. Moving through the cold as if it did not exist, she watched a group of them running along a path by the water. They wore thin clothes that offered almost no protection. Their faces were red from the cold, and their breath came out in white puffs. But they were laughing. They were smiling. They were running in freezing temperatures for no reason except that they wanted to. A human child walked past her, eating something cold and sweet. Ice cream, Sayla remembered it was called. The child was eating frozen food in freezing weather, and the child's mother was not concerned at all. "You look confused," a voice said behind her. Sayla turned. A human woman stood there, short and dark-haired, with warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. She wore a heavy coat, but beneath it, Sayla could see the lean build of someone who exercised regularly. "Dr. Vasquez?" Sayla asked. "Call me Alina." "Welcome to Earth, Sayla. I imagine this is not what you expected." The Academy said humans cannot survive in extreme temperatures. The Academy said, "You are vulnerable to cold." Lena laughed. It was a warm sound, genuine and without mockery. "We are vulnerable to cold. That is true. But vulnerable does not mean helpless. Come, I have much to show you." Over the following weeks, Alina took Sayla on a journey through human history and human nature. She showed her things that the Academy had never mentioned. Things that changed everything Sayla thought she knew. First, Lena showed her videos of something called persistence hunting. In the ancient past, before humans had weapons or tools, they hunted animals by chasing them. Not fast chases that ended in minutes, but slow pursuits that lasted hours or even days. The human would follow the animal, never stopping, never resting, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. "Most predators sprint," Alina explained as they watched the footage. "They catch their prey quickly or not at all. Humans are different. We do not need to be faster than our prey. We just need to never stop. We keep going until our target cannot go anymore. We outlast them." Sayla watched a human in the video tracking an antelope across a vast plain. The animal was faster. The animal was stronger. But the human just kept walking, jogging, following. After 6 hours, the antelope fell. The human won. "This is how your ancestors hunted?" Sayla asked. "This is how humans survive," Alina replied. "We endure. We persist. We refuse to stop." Next, Alina showed her human adaptability. Humans lived in deserts where the temperature reached levels that would cook most species. They lived in frozen lands where the cold could kill in minutes. They lived underwater in pressurized habitats. They lived in space stations orbiting their planet. They were beginning to live on other worlds. The Academy teaches that humans need specific conditions to survive, Alina said. The Academy forgets that humans change their conditions to match their needs. We do not adapt to our environment. We force our environment to adapt to us. Then Alina took Sayla to meet human soldiers. Not the politicians and diplomats that most aliens saw, but the real warriors. The ones who had trained for combat. The ones who had seen death. One soldier, a man with scars on his face and calm eyes, told Sayla about a battle he had fought on a distant colony. His unit had been ambushed. He had been shot 3 times. But he had continued fighting for 12 hours until rescue arrived. Why? Sayla asked. Why did you not stop? Your body was failing. The soldier shrugged as if the answer was obvious. My friends were still alive. They needed me. I could stop after they were safe. Another soldier, a woman with a prosthetic arm, told Sayla about losing her limb in an explosion. She had tied off the wound herself, then continued to command her squad until the battle was over. Humans feel pain, the woman said. We feel it as much as anyone. But pain is just information. It tells you something is wrong. It does not mean you have to stop. Sayla was beginning to understand. The Academy taught that humans were fragile. This was true. But fragility was not the same as weakness. Humans knew they were fragile. They had always known. And because they knew, they had spent their entire existence learning how to survive despite their fragility. The most important lesson came when Alina took Sayla to a military museum. The museum contained the history of human warfare. Not just the weapons and the battles, but the strategies and the adaptations. Every time humans had faced a superior enemy, they had found a way to win. Every time they had been conquered, they had risen again. Every time they had faced extinction, they had survived. Your academy teaches cadets how to kill one human, Alina said as they walked through the exhibits. It does not teach them what happens when you try to kill all of us. She stopped in front of a display showing ancient human weapons. Stones tied to sticks, sharpened bones, primitive bows and arrows. Look at these weapons, Alina said. Look how simple they are. With weapons like these, humans hunted animals that were 10 times their size. With weapons like these, they conquered a planet, and they never stopped improving. Every generation made better weapons than the generation before. Every war taught them new ways to fight. Sayla stared at the display. She thought about the curriculum she had taught to hundreds of cadets. She thought about how confident she had been in human weakness. She asked finally, why have you not corrected the Concord's mistakes? Why do you let them teach this wrong information? Elena's expression changed. The friendly smile remained, but now Sayla could see something beneath it. Something dangerous. Something that had been hiding behind the warmth all along. Because when someone underestimates you, they make mistakes. And humans have learned through thousands of years of war against each other that the greatest advantage is being underestimated. She turned to face Sayla directly. The Corvani think they know how to kill us. They think their academy has prepared them for war against humanity, but they have no idea what we are capable of. They have studied our weaknesses without understanding our strengths. They have memorized our biology without learning our history. They know how we die. They do not know how we fight to live. Sayla felt cold despite the warm air of the museum. What are you saying? I am saying that 40 years ago, when humanity first met alien life, we made a decision. We would appear weak. We would appear harmless. We would let the galaxy believe that we were prey. And while they believed that, we would watch. We would learn. We would prepare. Prepare for what? Alina smiled again, but now the smile was different. Now, it was the smile of a predator. For the day when we would have to show them the truth. That evening, Sayla received a message on her communicator. It was from a Corvani military channel, forwarded by someone who thought she should know, the Corvani High. Command had authorized a military demonstration against a human colony. They were going to test everything the Academy had taught them. They were going to show the galaxy that humans could be beaten. Sayla looked at Alina. Alina was reading the same message on her own device. "They are going to attack your people," Sayla said. "Innocent colonists. Because of what the Academy taught them." Alina put down her device and looked at Sayla with eyes that held no fear at all. "Yes, they are going to try. And we are going to teach them a lesson they will never forget." Right. The time for patience had ended. The time for correction had begun. Admiral Korthax stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the stars streak past as his fleet traveled through hyperspace. He commanded 100 warships, each one crewed by soldiers who had graduated from the Corvani Academy. Each one of those soldiers knew exactly how to kill a human. Today, they would prove it. The target was a human colony called New Helsinki. Population, 2.3 million. Defense fleet, 12 small vessels. The Corvani would outnumber them nearly 10-1. It would not be a battle. It would be a demonstration, Admiral, his tactical officer called out. "We are approaching the target system." Korthax straightened his spine and crossed his massive arms. "Bring us out of hyperspace. Launch all fighters." And broadcast the surrender demand. The stars stopped moving as the fleet dropped into normal space. Before them, a blue and green planet rotated slowly. It looked peaceful. It looked helpless. Korthak's message was transmitted on all frequencies. "People of New Helsinki, this is Admiral Korthax of the Corvani 7th Fleet. You are surrounded. Your defense force cannot protect you. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will demonstrate the consequences of defiance." He expected panic. He expected desperate pleas for mercy. He expected the humans to realize that they had made a terrible mistake by thinking they could challenge the Concord's established order. Instead, a calm voice answered, "Corvani Fleet. This is Admiral Sarah Okonkwo of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered human sovereign space with hostile intent. You have 1 hour to withdraw. After that, we will correct your misconceptions." Korthax blinked. This was not the response the Academy had taught him to expect. Humans were supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to negotiate, to beg, to try anything to avoid conflict. They were not supposed to issue counter-threats to a superior force. Did she say correct? His aide asked nervously. "It does not matter what she said," Korthax replied. "They have 12 ships. We have 100. They cannot possibly hope to win." The hour passed. The humans did not surrender. The Corvani fleet advanced, and then everything changed. It started with the sensors. Every scanner, every targeting system, every communication relay on every Corvani ship went dark at the same moment. The screen showed nothing but static. The computers produced nothing but errors. "What is happening?" Korthax demanded. "Unknown, Admiral? We are experiencing total electronic interference. All systems are compromised." Korthax felt something he had not felt in decades of warfare. He felt uncertainty. "Switch to backup systems. Get me visual contact with the enemy." The backup systems came online slowly, fighting against interference that seemed to come from everywhere at once. When the visual screens finally cleared, Korthax saw something impossible. The 12 human ships had become one. 140, they emerged from behind asteroids. From beneath the ice of distant moons, from shadows that the Corvani sensors had not thought to check. Each ship was smaller than a Corvani vessel, but they moved with a speed and precision that seemed almost impossible. "Where did they come from?" Korthax whispered. "Admiral, the ships appeared to be using advanced stealth technology. Our sensors never detected them because they were designed to be invisible to our scanning frequencies. How is that possible? We never shared our scanning technology with humans. It appears they discovered it on their own, sir. And then they developed countermeasures." Korthax watched as the human fleet moved. They did not attack. They did not fire a single weapon. Instead, they simply surrounded the Corvani ships with surgical precision. Within minutes, every Corvani vessel had multiple human ships positioned around it, each one with weapons locked on critical systems. The communications channel crackled. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on every screen in the Corvani fleet. "Admiral Korthax," she said. Her voice was calm, almost friendly. "Your academy teaches that humans are fragile. This is true. We die easily. Our bodies break. Our blood spills. We are, in many ways, one of the weakest species in the galaxy." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "But what your academy failed to teach is this. We know we are fragile. We have always known. And because we know, we have spent our entire existence learning how to survive anyway. We do not win by being stronger than our enemies. We win by being smarter, more adaptable, and more determined than anything that tries to kill us." Korthax watched the screens showing human ships holding position around his fleet. He had trained for decades. He had studied every known combat tactic, but he had never seen anything like this. "You came here to demonstrate your superiority?" Okonkwo continued. "Consider this our demonstration instead. You are outmaneuvered. You are outgunned. You are surrounded. But we are not going to destroy you." Korthax felt his heart racing. "You are not. No, we are going to send you home. But first, we are going to give you something to bring back to your academy. A correction." The communications channel remained open as every Corvani ship received a massive data transfer. Files began appearing on their computers. Historical records, scientific data, strategic analyses, information that the Concord had never seen before. "That data contains the truth about humanity," Okonkwo said. "Our real military capabilities, our true history, the wars we have fought against each other, and what we learned from fighting them. Study it. Share it with your academy. And remember this moment." She leaned forward slightly, and for the first time, Korthax saw something in her eyes that made him understand why his entire strategy had failed. He saw patience. He saw intelligence. He saw the calm certainty of someone who had already won. "The next time you think about threatening human lives," Okonkwo said quietly, "remember that we spent 40 years letting you believe we were weak. We let you teach your students how to kill us. We watched your academy produce generation after generation of soldiers who thought they understood us. And we did nothing. Do you understand what that means?" Korthax understood. He understood better than he wanted to. "It means you were studying us the entire time," he said. "Okay?" O nodded. "We know how you think. We know how you train. We know how you plan to fight. You showed us everything, and you never knew we were watching. So when you go home, tell your leaders this. The next time humanity acts, it will not be a demonstration. It will not be a lesson. It will be a war. And you have no idea how humans fight wars." The human fleet maintained its position for exactly 10 minutes. Long enough for the message to be received by every ship in the Corvani force. Long enough for every soldier to understand that they had been completely outmaneuvered. Then, as smoothly as they had appeared, the human ships began to withdraw. They fell back in perfect formation, giving the Corvani fleet a clear path out of the system. Korthax sat in his command chair, staring at the screens. His officers waited for orders. His tactical systems were coming back online, showing him all the weapons he could bring to bear, all the firepower he could unleash, but he knew it would be meaningless. The humans had shown him their capabilities without firing a single shot. If they could do this when they were being merciful, what could they do when they were being ruthless? "Set course for home," Korthax ordered quietly. "Sir, we are not going to engage. No, we are going to deliver their message. We are going to hope that the High Command listens." The Corvane 7th Fleet turned away from New Helsinki and jumped into hyperspace. They left behind a colony that had not been touched, a population that had not been harmed, and a lesson that would change the galaxy. Far away on a neutral space station, Sayla watched the confrontation through a news broadcast. She saw the Corvani fleet retreat. She saw the human ships let them go. She thought about everything Alina had taught her. She thought about persistence and adaptability and the will to survive. She thought about 40 years of patience and preparation, and she understood. Finally, what made humans dangerous? It was not their weapons. It was not their technology. It was not even their intelligence. it was their patience. They had waited for decades for this moment. They had let themselves be underestimated. They had allowed the galaxy to believe they were prey. And when the time came, they revealed that they had never been prey at all. They had been hunters, waiting for their target to make a mistake. 6 months had passed since the correction of New Helsinki. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one had predicted. The Corvani High Command had removed Commander Vethrax from his position at the Academy. The old instructor, who had spent his life teaching cadets how to kill humans, was now retired. Living in quiet disgrace on a remote colony world, his curriculum had been abandoned. His methods had been discredited. His certainty had been proven wrong. Throughout the Galactic Concord, species that had once viewed humans as prey were reconsidering their assumptions. Diplomats who had dismissed human ambassadors now treated them with careful respect. Military commanders who had planned for easy victories against humanity now reviewed their strategies with growing concern. The correction had been studied by every intelligence agency in known space. No shots had been fired. No lives had been lost. And yet an entire strategic doctrine had been dismantled in less than an hour. It was, many agreed, the most effective military operation anyone had ever seen. And it was terrifying precisely because it had been so. Restrained, Sayla stood at the front of the lecture hall on the source of N. She was no longer teaching the old curriculum. The Academy had asked her to develop something new, something that might prevent the next correction from being less merciful. 200 cadets sat before her, their eyes fixed on the screens that surrounded the room. These were the same seats where Sayla had once learned how to kill humans. Now, she was going to teach these students something far more important. The old curriculum taught you how to kill a human, she began. Her voice was steady and clear. I am going to teach you why you should never try. She activated the screens. Images appeared showing human history, not the sanitized version that Concord Intelligence had provided for so many years, but the truth. The ice ages and the plagues, the wars and the rebuilding, the persistence and the adaptability that had brought humanity from primitive caves to the stars. Humans are fragile, Sayla said. This is true. Their bodies are soft. They break easily. They require constant oxygen and narrow temperature ranges and regular sleep. Everything the old curriculum taught you about human weakness was accurate. She paused, letting the words sink in. But the old curriculum made a terrible mistake. It assumed that weakness meant vulnerability. It assumed that because humans could be killed, they would be easy to defeat. It ignored the single most important fact about humanity. She changed the images. Now the screens showed humans surviving, climbing mountains in blizzards, running marathons in deserts, building cities in places where nothing should live, fighting wars that lasted generations and coming back stronger each time. Humans know they are fragile, Sayla continued. They have always known. Their entire civilization is built on that knowledge. Every tool they create, every weapon they design, every strategy they develop comes from the understanding that they are weak and must compensate for that weakness with intelligence and determination and will. A cadet raised his hand. He was young, his scales still bright with youth. Instructor, the humans showed mercy at New Helsinki. They could have destroyed our fleet, but they chose not to. Does this not suggest that they are unwilling to fight? Sayla shook her head slowly. No, cadet. It suggests the opposite. Humans who are unwilling to fight do not spend 40 years building a secret fleet and developing countermeasures against every known scanning technology. Humans who are unwilling to fight do not position themselves to destroy an enemy and then choose not to. She walked closer to the cadets, her forearms clasped behind her back. The humans showed mercy at New Helsinki because they wanted to show mercy. They wanted to teach us, not kill us. But make no mistake, if we had fired on their colony, if we had killed their people, they would not have shown mercy. They would have destroyed our fleet completely. Then they would have come for the homeworld. The lecture hall was silent. Every cadet understood what Sayla was saying. The humans had been in control the entire time. They had chosen the outcome. They could just as easily have chosen something very different. The question you should be asking, Sayla said, is not how do we kill humans. The question is how do we ensure they never decide to kill us? And the answer to that question is simple. We do not threaten them. We do not underestimate them. We treat them as equals and hope that they continue to show us the same mercy they showed our fleet. After the lecture, Sayla returned to her quarters. A message was waiting for her from Dr. Elena Vasquez. I heard your lecture was broadcast across the Academy network. Congratulations on teaching the truth. I hope your students understand it. Sayla typed a reply. They are beginning to understand. It will take time. Generations of prejudice cannot be erased in a single lecture. We know about time, Elena responded. We are patient. Those 4 words contained everything Sayla had learned about humanity. We are patient. They had waited 40 years to reveal their strength. They could wait another 40, another 100, as long as it took. On Earth, Ambassador Yuki Tanaka sat in a garden with Admiral Sarah Okonkwo. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. It was hard to believe that these 2 women had orchestrated the most significant shift in galactic power in centuries. The Corvani are changing their academy, Okonkwo said, teaching their students to respect us instead of despise us. Tanaka nodded, sipping tea from a delicate cup. Fear is temporary. Respect lasts longer. But understanding is what prevents wars. Do you think they truly understand us now? Tanaka smiled. It was the same serene expression she had worn throughout every insult and every condescension during those diplomatic summits. They understand what we wanted them to understand? That is enough for now. Okonkwo raised an eyebrow. There is more? There's always more with humans, Admiral. We showed them our patience, showed them our intelligence, showed them our capability for restraint. We did not show them what happens when we get angry. The Admiral considered this. She thought about the weapons that humanity had developed, but never revealed. The strategies they had planned, but never implemented. The depths of human determination that the galaxy had not yet seen. Let us hope they never learn that lesson, Okonkwo said quietly. Tanaka set down her teacup and watched the sun sink below the horizon. Indeed, let us hope. Back at the academy, a young cadet approached Sayla after the other students had left. The cadet was nervous, his mandibles clicking with uncertainty. Instructor, I have a question. The humans knew we were teaching this curriculum for years. They watched us prepare to kill them. Why did they wait so long to correct us? Why not reveal their strength immediately? Sayla remembered asking Alina the same question. She remembered the answer. She remembered the cold understanding that had settled into her hearts when she finally grasped what humanity had done. Because humans do not just fight wars, Sayla replied. They prepare for wars. They watch. They learn. They wait. And when they finally act, it is not because they are ready to fight. It is because they have already won. The cadet looked confused, but they did not destroy our fleet. They did not demand territory or resources. How is that winning? Gestured around them at the lecture hall, at the new curriculum displayed on the screens, at the changed attitudes that were spreading through the entire academy. Look around you, cadet. They changed our entire civilization's understanding without firing a single shot. They turned potential enemies into cautious allies. They transformed a war into a lesson. She paused, considering the full scope of what humanity had accomplished. That is how humans win. Not by killing their enemies, but by making sure their enemies never want to fight them in the first place. That night, Sayla received one final message from Alina. Thank you for teaching the new curriculum. Perhaps one day the galaxy will understand that we never wanted to be feared. We just wanted to be understood, and maybe eventually to be friends. Sayla read the message twice. Then she typed her response. The cadets asked why you did not reveal yourself sooner. I told them it was strategy. Elena's reply came quickly. That was part of it, but the truth is simpler. We were afraid too, Sayla. We are always afraid. That fear is what makes us fight so hard to live. Sayla stared at the words on her screen. In all her studies, all her research, all her time among humans, this was the most honest thing one had ever told her. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were not dangerous because they were smart or patient or adaptable. They were dangerous because they were afraid, and they had turned that fear into the will to survive anything the universe could throw at them. They knew they could die. They knew they were fragile. They knew that every day could be their last, and so they fought. They persisted. They endured. They refused to stop. Sayla closed her communicator and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were building colonies on new worlds, exploring new frontiers, preparing for challenges that had not yet arrived. They would keep going. They would keep surviving. They would keep surprising the galaxy with their impossible resilience. Because that was what humans did. That was what they had always done. And that was why. In the end, no academy curriculum would ever truly teach anyone how to defeat them. You could learn how to kill a human, but you could never learn how to break the human spirit. And as long as that spirit survived, humanity would survive with it.